So I know one of the go-to tools in metal fabrication is the angle grinder. And I have one and I use it. In fact, you'll see me use it in one of my videos coming up, building another tool. So I have to say these things, I'm intimidated by these things. I mean, they're spinning at an incredibly high rate of RPM, and the cutoff disc is, I mean, to me, it's paper thin. It's loud, it throws off a ton of sparks and creates a ton of dust, and I'm in a confined space, so that's always a concern for me. In one of my previous videos of me building my part of my forge body, I had to take this guard off because I was sanding a curved piece of metal, and I made a mistake. My thumb had hit the sanding disc part. For that nanosecond of touching it, it caused quite a bit of damage to my thumb. Anyway, I've been looking for an alternative to this thing, something that's a lot quieter, no sparks, and the cuts are much more accurate. And that's when I started looking for one of these benchtop power hacksaws. There we go. Vintage Keller benchtop power hacksaw, and man, this thing is awesome. I've been on a lookout for one of these for a very long time, and anything that's come up it's been either too expensive, too far away, or too far gone in terms of condition. But this one that I got here is from a buddy who knew I was looking for one. He had it, gave me a great deal on it, and man, this thing is awesome, and it's in like almost perfect condition. I am so happy with this. I was seriously considering the Harbor Freight horizontal metal cutting bandsaw, and it seemed very versatile, fairly inexpensive, even though it's compact. Two things: one, I don't have a lot of floor space as it is, and two, it's Harbor Freight. Now, I'm a fan of Harbor Freight tools when you're first starting out. There's a lot of tools that I think make sense. That being said, I started to do a little bit more research, and then I came across these old-time power hacksaws. Now, I know I mentioned that when I picked up this power hacksaw, it was in fantastic condition, and it is. However, there are some minor issues that I need to take care of. So why don't I bring you in closer, and I'll show you what I'm dealing with. So this came with a motor. This motor is not original to this. The way I know that is there was an adapter plate that was fabricated for this to fit on the machine. This motor and this motor, they're the same horsepower and the same speed. However, this motor, it's a little hard to tell. It's a little bit bigger and a whole lot heavier. And what that did was because it was a little bit bigger, it was hard to align the pulley, the back pulley with the front pulley. And this belt that came with it, it either stretched a little bit or was just a little bit too long. And the pulley part couldn't clear the guard. So what they had to do was have the actual motor a little bit cockeyed, and the belt didn't run straight. It was always a little bit at a slant. So I had this extra motor. Once again, it's a little bit lighter. I didn't weigh them, so I don't know exactly how much I'm saving. It is lighter, but because this motor was heavier, what it did, it bent a few items on the power hacksaw. This is where the motor plate attaches to the saw, and you can see that this bar, this sort of bolt, I have rotated it. You can see how it's sort of bent, and that was once again from the weight of the other motor. I tried to straighten this, but I would have to get one of these caps off, and I was afraid of damaging it. And I don't know if it's really a big deal to get this perfectly straight. Another part here, you can tell this is the bracket that mounts the motor mount, attaches the motor mount to the actual body of the saw. And you can see on this side here, it is sort of just a little bit bent, whereas this side is more of a perfect 90 degree. That one's a little not 90 degree. So I decided to take this bigger motor off and save it for another application, and used one of my old spare ones. One other thing I did was, instead of trying to find the correct belt size, now the original one is in really good condition, however it was just a tad too long, I opted for one of these link belts. Now they're a little bit more expensive, but it was much easier to get the correct size so that this pulley would fit within the belt guard without an issue, without it hitting the top or the bottom. And this worked out really well. And after I installed the belt pulley, I realized one other issue. I don't know what you would call this part, the cam, or I don't know what you would call this part here, but you can see that there's a directional arrow. Well, after running this a few times and doing some test cuts with the original motor, I realized that this was going the opposite way. Now it's still cut metal. I don't know if that really affected the performance, but I prefer to have it going the correct way. And even though I put this new motor on, it was still operating in the wrong way. So I had to do a little research, and it was fairly easy to figure out. But switching the wires that come out of the motor with these contact points, if you just reverse them, it changes the direction of the motor. So that was something I learned, and it was easy to do. So now this rotates the correct way. So the last issue I need to address, you notice on the top plate here, there's a hole. What used to go here was an electrical box that had a switch on it. And that switch attached to a part of the saw here, and I'll get you in closer. And what it is, it's a cutoff switch. So when the blade comes down to a certain point, it hits this and pulls the switch and shuts the power off. So here's a close-up of that lever. You can see there's like an adjustment screw, and when the saw is on, would hook into believe it or not, a light switch. And then when the blade comes down, when this blade is done cutting and comes down to a certain point, and the blade would come down and push this, which then would flip a switch. Now, there's not a lot of videos of this particular model of Keller power hacksaw on YouTube. I did actually find a good video. Actually got a good look on what's supposed to be going on here. So the electrical box goes there. This would get mounted here. So I temporarily screwed this in place, and let me see if I could show you how this works. I'm doing this with one hand, so bear with me. So you could see how this metal wire goes through this light switch. It attaches to this metal bar here, and this is the adjustment screw right here, which you can set to make sure that there's enough leverage to flip the switch on and off. So right now this would be on the off position, but when I turn it on, you can see how that lifts up. It's a slight move, but you can see how it lifts up. And then as you're cutting and the blade comes down and gets to a certain point, it flips the switch off. Let me show you that again without hitting the camera this time. On. So as cutting hits the switch and shuts it off. The cover for this, with the cutout for the switch, the big box store was all out, and they couldn't tell me when new shipment was coming in. So I had to buy a blank, and what I did is I printed out a full-size example on the website of one of these handy covers and just did my best to line it up, marked it. I got to cut this out by hand so it can go on top of the box. I already showed you I have the handy box, this cover which I have to cut out this part. I have the actual switch which I already drilled out the hole. I also thought it'd be a good idea, instead of just wrapping the wires around screws, if I put these connectors on the ends of the wires. I also have an old extension cord that I'm going to use for the power supply. Going from the switch to the motor, I have an older power cord that I'm just going to use some of the wiring to go from the switch to the motor. I think I have everything here that I need to get this project in, so I'm gonna start doing this, and let's see how I do. All right, well, for the moment of truth, I have this massive piece of 1-inch rebar. Why don't we put it in a hacksaw and see what this thing can do? Wow, I'm really impressed with the finish on this. First of all, it didn't take a lot of time at all. I didn't time it exactly with a stopwatch, but according to the clip of this being cut, it only took under a minute and a half. So that's pretty quick for cutting 1 inch of rebar. Yeah, and it is smooth, and other than just a little burr, I'm really impressed. This is great. This is like a fantastic machine. Yeah, like wow. Wow. Yeah, I am happy to have this added to my collection of old tools, and I'm going to put it to good use. I really am. Yeah, I am super excited to have this piece of old iron added to my collection. In fact, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I did actually use this to build another tool, which is blacksmith related. And I do have a bunch of projects in the works. So fingers crossed, hopefully those will be coming out fairly soon. That's it. Hope everybody's staying safe in these crazy times. Evil Twin X saying, catch you guys soon.